They told the videographer not to film me. Not because I was camera shy, but because I wasn't part of the family anymore. Hi, I'm Fiona. At my own sister's wedding, I wasn't a bridesmaid. I wasn't even a guest. I was the valet. And that wasn't the worst part. Imagine being blocked from every photo, every video, every memory, as if you were never born. And then finding out the bride, your sister, had already planned to void her prenup before even saying, I do. Would you stay silent? Would you let them erase you? Or would you do what I did? Tell me, have you ever been treated like a ghost by the very people meant to love you? Drop a comment. I want to hear your story. Because what happened next? Let's just say, they didn't see it coming. Let me take you back to where it all began. The sun glared off the hood of a silver Tesla, the heat distorting the air above it like a mirage. I stood in the gravel lot behind the Whitmore estate in Charleston, sweat lining the collar of my black staff shirt. No welcome sign bore my name. No one came to greet me. Instead, I was handed a lanyard that read, Marla. No title, no last name, just another pair of hands. They didn't even pretend this time. 2 weeks ago, I got a call from my mother. No, hello. No, how are you? Just, we need someone to coordinate valet for the wedding. You're organized, right? It wasn't a request. It was an instruction. I had said yes. Like a fool. At first, I told myself I was being helpful, but deep down, I had hoped that by being present, maybe I'd finally be seen. A mistake. The staff uniform they gave me was tight in the shoulders and smelled of starch and perfume that wasn't mine. I changed in the staff bathroom, folding my own clothes neatly into a plastic garment bag. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't see a guest. I didn't see family. I saw a shadow. The guests started arriving before noon. BMWs and Bentleys coasted up the estate's circular driveway. Drivers didn't make eye contact. A few nodded, assuming I was one of many hands behind the curtain. One woman rolled down her window and chirped, "Is the staff bathroom out back too?" before laughing and rolling it up again. By the fifth luxury car, I'd stopped trying to smile. I asked Danny, the coordinator, if I should help inside once the flow slowed. She didn't look up from her clipboard. "You're outdoor staff only. Don't forget sunscreen." Inside, I could hear the faint tinkling of champagne glasses and chamber music. Outside, I moved cones with dusty hands and scuffed shoes. Sweat pooled behind my knees. A blister formed where my heel rubbed against thin flats. A silver Lexus pulled up. The window rolled down and I saw Mrs. Kellerman, our old neighbor. Her eyes narrowed. "Marla. Oh. I didn't realize you were working the wedding." "Just helping," I lied. "Family pitching in." Her smile faltered and she quickly turned away, the kind of polite retreat people make when they feel sorry, but don't want to show it. When the flow of cars finally slowed, I found a sliver of shade behind a white column. My phone buzzed. Theo. "Still want me to show?" I stared at it. I hadn't told him how bad it really was. He offered to fly in. I told him not to. Now, I wasn't so sure. And then the videographer came outside. He wasn't filming the crowd anymore. He was filming me. I froze. When he noticed me looking, he lowered his camera awkwardly. "Sorry," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Bride asked us not to film the support team." Support team. That's what I was now. I nodded. No problem. He left, but the moment clung to me like damp fabric. When I checked Instagram again, I was blocked from Cassidy's page. Her wedding hashtag had over 300 posts. I wasn't in a single one. Not even in the blurry background. I checked Virginia's profile, public, on purpose. In one photo, she stood with Cassidy and Dennis beneath a canopy of roses. "The three that built this day together," the caption read. The sun stung my eyes, but it wasn't just the light. A familiar voice approached from the garden. "You don't look like someone who belongs in a parking lot." I turned. It was Celeste Lowell, Grayson's mother. She was elegant in a silver wrap, heels digging into gravel like she didn't notice. "You're her sister?" she asked. I nodded once. "Strange," she said. "Everyone inside pretends you don't exist." I let out a breath that tasted like metal. "I'm the part they don't brag about." She didn't flinch. Instead, she handed me a cold bottle of water from her clutch. "Hydration is survival," she said. Then Danny appeared, smiling too hard. "Hi, are you Marla? Virginia asked me to get your signature, just a formality." She handed me a clipboard. It was a volunteer and staff waiver, non-disclosure, no press contact, no photos, no video appearance. Silence, dressed up as protocol. "Is this normal for parking attendants?" I asked. She beamed. "Just to prevent confusion. Virginia said you'd understand." I didn't sign it. I didn't tear it up either. I folded it in half and slipped it into my back pocket. When Celeste turned to walk away, she looked over her shoulder and said, "Keep that form. You may need it. Not to sign, but to show." And with that, she vanished into the party. I stayed by the parking loop, clutching a bottle of unopened water, a waiver in my back pocket, and the growing weight of knowing. This wasn't an oversight. This was erasure, and it was about to end. The clink of silverware on china echoed faintly from the reception tent, but I wasn't near it. I was behind the hedge, leaning against a service cart no one had bothered to roll back into the storage bay. That's where I hid when the world tried to forget me, just out of sight, just enough to still hear them celebrate someone else. I pulled out my phone again. Cassidy's profile was still blocked. So was Virginia's. Not that I needed to see more. I had already seen the caption, "The three that built this day together." They meant Virginia, Dennis, Cassidy, not me. The wedding hashtag was still trending locally. Every tagged photo, every video clip, none of them had me. It wasn't an accident. It was design. It wasn't that they forgot me. They had deleted me. I leaned back and stared at the tree canopy swaying above me. I remembered when we were kids. Cassidy and I would lay under trees in the backyard and talk about who we'd become. She wanted to be a bride. I wanted to be seen. Funny how only one of us got her wish. Have you ever felt like someone else's dream was built on your silence? That every time you tried to shine, someone dimmed the light on purpose? If you've been quietly erased by your own family, drop a comment number 7 below. Now, let's see what happened next. My throat tightened with something too old to be called sadness. It was recognition. This wasn't the first time. I remembered the scholarship letter, how I brought it to the kitchen with shaking hands. Virginia barely glanced at it. "That's nice, dear," she said while stirring sauce. But when Cassidy got 3rd place in the spelling bee, she had brunch and balloons. That was the pattern. Cassidy always sparkled. I was told not to compete. They never said it outright, but they didn't have to. The sound of cautious footsteps pulled me out of the spiral. I turned, and there stood Dennis, my father. He looked older, more tired than I remembered. He held something in his hand, a folded piece of paper. He didn't offer it, just kept it by his side. "You doing okay?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. "Define okay." He gave a dry chuckle. "Fair." I waited. Silence sat heavy between us. "I saw your name wasn't in the guest app," he finally said. I should have said something. "Should've," I echoed, but didn't. He nodded slowly. "You're right. I didn't expect that." "I don't know when it started," he said, "you disappearing, or us letting it happen. But we did." That made me look at him, really look. For once, he wasn't avoiding my eyes. And for once, I let him see what was behind mine. I didn't disappear, I said. You all just stopped looking. He swallowed hard and nodded. We failed you, Marla. Not the other way around. He handed me the paper. It was a photo. 2 little girls in a Halloween driveway, Cassidy in a princess dress, me in a crooked dragon costume made of towels and duct tape. I found it yesterday, he said. Didn't know what to do with it until now. I held it, fingers trembling. I hadn't seen this picture in years. You were both magic, he added. We just only lit up one side. Before I could answer, Vera appeared, her silver wrap catching the low sun. She nodded politely to Dennis, then turned to me. We need to talk, she said. Dennis stepped back, giving her space, giving me space. Vera handed me a folded sheet. I unfolded it slowly. It was an email. Cassidy to her lawyer. Can we expedite post-marriage asset transfer? Grayson's family is insisting on a prenup. I'll sign it, but we'll dissolve it after the merger. I'll handle it. He'll never notice. I stared at it, the words digging like glass under the skin. This was sent to the wrong address, Vera said. Landed in my inbox. She really said merger, I whispered. She really meant it, Vera replied. I folded the paper again, added it to the same pocket that held the waiver. We're not done yet, Vera said. But we're starting. After Vera handed me the email, she didn't walk away immediately. Instead, she studied me the way a physician might examine a scar, gently, but without sentiment. I didn't always like the way Grayson loved, she said finally. Too open, too fast, but I never questioned that it was real. I nodded slowly, still holding the email like it might burn through my fingers. Vera added, Cassidy thinks strategy is a personality, but what she lacks is memory. She forgets people like you remember everything. I didn't respond, but something settled in my chest. As Vera walked back toward the reception tent, Dennis lingered a moment longer. He looked at me not as a man with answers, but as one with apologies still unspoken. You were 5, he said quietly, when you built that dragon tail out of towels, spent hours on it. We laughed then. We shouldn't have. I wasn't trying to be funny, I whispered. I know, he said. I just didn't then. He didn't try to hug me. He just nodded once and stepped away, leaving me with the photo, the email, and a silence that, for the first time, felt like mine to fill. I slipped the photo behind my phone case and watched the reception lights blink like distant stars. For the first time that day, I felt something close to clarity. Not peace, not yet. But something was starting. I found her by accident. I'd been walking the service corridor behind the reception tent, trying to shake off the way Dennis's voice still echoed in my chest. I wasn't looking for anything, just distance. But then I saw the name, printed on the master staff list taped outside the operations office. Venue owner. Jules Lee. For a second, I blinked like I'd misread it. Jules Lee, my college roommate. The girl who once slept in a coat during finals week because her heating broke and financial aid was late. Jules, who used to doodle floor plans in the margins of textbooks. Jules, who once said, "One day, I'll run spaces that make people feel chosen." I walked in before I had time to talk myself out of it. The operations office was small, cluttered, and smelled like printer toner and coffee gone cold. She was hunched over a screen, barking orders through a headset. No, the florals go left of the fountain, not behind. She turned, paused mid-sentence, and her mouth opened. Marla? She said, blinking. Hi, I said, unsure how else to explain my presence in a borrowed uniform with my hair pulled into a utilitarian knot. She smiled, slowly, like someone flipping through memories. You haven't changed, except now you look like you own the place. Hardly. She stood and pulled me into a quick hug, then held me at arm's length. I was going to text you after this weekend, she said. Didn't know this was the Whitmore Circus. That makes two of us. I didn't have to explain more. Jules had always been smart enough to read between silences. She glanced at the list on the desk, the one Danny had scribbled in Sharpie. Wait, why does this say your valet staff? Because I am. Courtesy of Virginia. Jules' eyes narrowed, not with confusion but disgust. I've got space up here, she said. And you're not valet anymore. Before I could argue, she clicked her headset back on. Fiona, sorry, Marla, is now oversight clearance. Give her a new badge. Cream band. A moment later, a staffer handed me a fresh lanyard, white, clean, and labeled Strategic Oversight. It didn't erase anything, but it felt like a restoration. Did she even invite you? Jules asked. I shook my head. Only to serve. She handed me a protein bar and pulled up the venue's camera feeds on a tablet. Dozens of live shots, from the garden to the dining tent, flashed in real time. You want to see what they say when they don't know you're watching? I stared at the screen. Cassidy stood near the rose arch, laughing into someone's camera. Her veil was pinned perfectly. Her smile was rehearsed. Not yet, I said. Let them toast first. Jules nodded and muted the screen. We sat in silence for a beat. Then she slid a tiny chocolate box across the desk. Leftovers from the VIP table. Take what they won't give you. I took it, unwrapped one square, and bit down. Before the footage interrupted us, Jules had leaned back in her chair, tapping the edge of the desk like she was weighing something heavier than time. You know, she said, I still have that note you left me senior year. The one with the tea bag taped to the corner. I blinked. Seriously? It's folded in my wallet. You wrote, for when the world forgets you, steep in boiling truth and sip until strength returns. I didn't get it then. I do now. I laughed, quietly. You drank it? I did. Finals week. And when my mom said I'd wasted tuition on dreams. She paused. You saved me that year. You showed up when I didn't even know I needed showing up for. You don't owe anyone quiet, Marla. The breath in my chest caught. I hadn't realized how long I'd held it. Jules looked at me like I was still wearing that dragon tail costume, like she saw the effort and not the awkward. I always thought you'd do something bold, she added. I just didn't think it would be here. The ping that followed cut through the moment, but the weight of her words didn't fall away. They settled somewhere deep, where roots grow. Then a ping sounded again on her laptop. Hold on, she muttered, clicking. Her eyes sharpened. What the hell? I leaned over. On screen was security footage from the East Wing. Cassidy, pulling Vera aside into a private room. Jules enhanced the audio. It was grainy, but clear. Cassidy's voice rang out, crisp and smug. Grayson's assets won't matter when the marriage dissolves. We win either way. Jules's eyes met mine. You want to expose this now? She asked. I shook my head slowly. Not yet, I said again. Let them toast. The sun had dipped below the trees, casting long shadows across the side lot. The golden hour, they called it, perfect for photos. But I wasn't in any of them, not by accident, by design. I stood near the back service entrance when she appeared, clipboard in one hand, headset tight against her ear, and a smile so polished it squeaked. Danny. Hi, Marla, she chirped. Quick favor. Virginia asked me to get your signature. Just a quick formality. I already knew what it was. The same waiver I had folded into my back pocket the first time. I took the clipboard from her and scanned the document. It was a media and liability release, more detailed than before. Bolded phrases jumped out at me. No legal claim. No presence in photo-video archive. Non-disclosure of event details. The lines were weapons dressed in Helvetica. Standard procedure. Danny added, especially for non-guest staff. I looked up. You mean family? She blinked. Virginia said, don't finish that sentence. I didn't sign. Again. Instead, I folded the form slowly, methodically, and slid it back into my pocket. Tell Virginia I'll consider it. I walked off before she could press the issue. I could feel eyes tracking me, hers, and maybe a few from the bridal party whisper net. But I didn't flinch. By the fountain, I saw Clarissa. Her shawl was perfectly draped, her pearls adjusted. She was speaking to someone I didn't recognize, all tight smiles and cordial hands. When she noticed me, her expression tightened. Just a fraction. Enough. I crossed toward her deliberately. You sent Danny, I said. Clarissa didn't miss a beat. We just want to avoid confusion. This day isn't about you. No, I replied. It never was. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. You don't want to embarrass yourself. I'm not the one hiding documents behind a clipboard. Her eyes flickered. You've always been dramatic. And you've always been strategic. I pulled the form from my pocket and held it up between us. This is a gag order, not a formality. She reached for it, but I pulled it back. Still unsigned. Clarissa's smile flattened. You think this makes you brave? No, I said, but it makes me visible. Before she could answer, Vera appeared. She moved like wind, silent, deliberate. She stood between us, not flinching. Virginia, she said coolly. Perhaps now isn't the time to silence your daughter again. Clarissa stiffened. This is a private matter. Not anymore, Vera replied. Not with what's coming. Clarissa's eyes darted to me, then Vera. Calculating. Then she turned and walked away. Vera waited until she was out of earshot. She's unraveling, she said. You didn't give her what she expected. What's that? Obedience. A nearby waiter dropped a tray. Glass shattered. People gasped, but only briefly. The attention returned to the champagne tower. Come, Vera said. There's something you need to see. She led me to a side hallway near the bridal suite. Quiet. Cold. From her clutch, she pulled out a second document. This landed in my inbox. Again. Cassidy's lawyer. Confirming timeline. I scanned it quickly. It was another chain, emails between Cassidy and her counsel, strategizing how to dissolve the prenup after 30 days. Her language was clinical, detached. Words like merger, post-legal clearance, and soft exit window. She didn't just plan a wedding, I said aloud. She plotted a takeover. And she underestimated the wrong people, Vera added. We stood in silence. My hands shook slightly. Keep the document, she said, and when the time comes, don't let them speak over you. We didn't move right away. I stayed in the hallway long after Vera left. The silence there was different, thicker somehow. I sat on the edge of a bench meant for flower girls and bridesmaids, tucked behind a curtain of hydrangeas. My fingers traced the edge of the unsigned waiver in my pocket. I remembered the first time I was told not to speak. I was 10. A school recital. I'd written a poem, one that won the district prize. But before I could recite it, Clarissa pulled me aside. Let Cassidy do the reading, she said. She's more photogenic. I hadn't cried that day. I'd nodded, stepped back, and clapped when Cassidy's voice filled the gymnasium with my words. The pattern had started early. I'd been told I was too loud, too blunt, too different. But really, I'd just been inconvenient to their curation. And now, with this document in my hand, professionally drafted, neutrally cruel, I realized it was never about silence. It was about control. The kind dressed in politeness. The kind that hands you a pen and asks you to disappear yourself. But this time, I didn't. This time, I folded the paper the way I once folded that poem. Neatly, without apology, and slid it into my pocket like a refusal made permanent. Back outside, the music played on, but it sounded thinner than before. The sky had shifted from gold to slate, and I felt it in my bones. The light was changing, and so was I. The music swelled like it didn't know what was about to happen. I hovered near the shadowed archway of the ballroom, my back pressed to the cool marble column. The crystal chandeliers above glimmered like watching eyes, catching slivers of the drama to come. Clarissa tapped the mic. The chime of glass on glass quieted the chatter. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, voice satin smooth, rehearsed to perfection. "A toast to our golden girl Cassidy." Applause burst out too easily, toast glasses tilted, cameras flashed. And there I stood, again, unseen, but this time, not silent. I caught Grayson's silhouette near the window. He didn't raise his glass. Instead, he was staring at his phone, frozen. I knew what he saw. The email. The subject line was burned into my brain. Execute Phase 2 post-merge. I had seen it. So had Vera. And now, so had he. Across the room, Vera caught my eye. She gave the faintest nod. This was it. Grayson straightened his spine, walked past the sweetheart table, and made his way to the mic as the band began shifting into a soft jazz interlude. He raised a hand. The pianist stilled mid-note. "I need a moment," Grayson said, voice clear, even. Cassidy's smile didn't fade immediately. She took a half-step toward him like someone about to offer a toast partner cue. But Grayson didn't look at her. He looked out at the room. "I was going to thank you all for being here," he continued. "I was going to speak of joy, partnership, trust." A ripple of stillness swept the room. "But then," he said, lifting a printed email, "I found this." He handed the paper to the planner standing nearby. She projected it on the ballroom screen, confused but obedient. There it was, clearly Cassidy's email to her lawyer. Her name, her instructions, her intent. Gasps scattered like glass dropped from a banquet tray. Cassidy blinked. Her hand still clutched her champagne flute. "Grayson, this isn't—" she began. "It is," Vera said, stepping forward. "And it's not the only thing." She held up the hard drive. "We recovered this from the bridal suite. Monitoring software, installed on Grayson's personal laptop. Cassidy asked him to download it for planning. It tracked his emails, logins, passwords, even keystrokes." Clarissa pushed forward, heels hitting marble like thunder. "This is a private family issue," she snapped. "No," Grayson replied. "It's a pattern." That's when Dennis moved. He stood slowly from the back of the room, shoulders squarer than I'd ever seen. He walked toward the front. Clarissa's voice rose. "This is Fiona's vendetta." And then Dennis said it. "Fiona didn't ruin this family. We did." A silence thicker than glass stretched between us. Even the chandeliers felt like they stopped humming. I didn't cry. Not yet. I simply breathed. Cassidy's facade cracked. She looked at Clarissa, then Grayson, then me. She threw the mic down. It hit the floor with a piercing screech. Her heels caught in the satin of her own dress as she turned to run, and the sound of tearing fabric followed her like punctuation. Clarissa gathered her shawl and followed her daughter. No one chased them. And I stayed, not hiding, not blinking, not backing down. The ballroom didn't erupt, it didn't panic. It just shifted. Like a tide going out, slow and irreversible. The champagne tower remained untouched, the cake uncut, the bouquet forgotten. Vera stepped beside me, offering no smile, no words, only a hand on my back. Steady, present. Grayson lingered at the mic a moment longer, then quietly walked down the steps. His eyes brushed mine briefly. He gave a nod, not of victory, but of release. Have you ever stood in a room where you were once invisible and realized this time you were the one holding the truth? That the silence you once feared had become your power? If that hit something in you, leave a comment number 9 below. Let's see how this story ends. I stepped back, finding my way to the wall near the guest book. I watched people begin to collect purses, coats, silence. Clarissa's last trick had failed. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Clarissa, meet me in the side hall. I looked at the screen for a long beat, then tapped. Delete. And this time, I didn't explain myself. I just exhaled, long and slow, and stood still as the lights dimmed and the weight lifted. The ballroom didn't empty all at once. It unraveled. One clutch, one cough, one awkward nod at a time. The string quartet had stopped playing, and someone had unplugged the champagne tower lights. Servers moved more slowly now, uncertain whether to clean or wait. I stood near the archway, still in my navy jumpsuit, still holding the waiver I never signed. The corners were curled now. I hadn't realized I'd been gripping it that tightly. Behind me, chairs scraped the floor, plates clinked gently, but no one laughed. No one whispered. They were looking, not with malice, not with mockery, with recognition. I passed the sweetheart table, still set, untouched. Candles flickered half-burnt, wax dripping over silver holders. Cassidy's place card had curled at the edges. Mine had never existed. I reached into my pocket and laid the waiver next to Cassidy's untouched flute. That paper had been a weapon, but not anymore. As I turned to leave, my steps faltered briefly beside the guest table. Something about the half-finished cake, the toppled place cards, and a single forgotten purse hanging off the back of a gold chair. Something about it tugged me backward. I remembered a birthday, not Cassidy's wedding, not tonight. A birthday, mine. I was maybe 8. Clarissa had said it didn't make sense to throw 2 parties, so we'd folded mine into Cassidy's. I sat at the corner of a long table while 30 neighborhood kids chanted Cassidy's name as she blew out candles on a cake shaped like a unicorn. Mine was a brownie in a paper napkin. That memory had dulled over time, like old glass. But tonight, it glittered again. Not because it hurt, but because I'd finally stepped away from it. As I turned again, Vera fell into step beside me. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. The silence between us was different now. Chosen, not forced. Before we reached the lot, she paused. "Wait," she said, and I did. From her small evening clutch, Vera pulled something unexpected. A lipstick. Deep red, gold casing, vintage. She handed it to me like it was a sword. "I wore this the first time I walked out of a room full of people who thought I should stay quiet." I blinked. "You kept it?" She gave a small smile. "Some colors aren't for blending." I took it without a word, tucked it gently into the inner pocket of my coat. Outside, the air was sharp with magnolia and smoke. Someone had started breaking down the patio lights. I walked slowly past the parked cars, my shoes crunching gravel. I found Mason waiting, exactly where he said he'd be, door already open. No questions. As we pulled away, I glanced once in the rearview mirror, not at the estate, but at the tiny figure standing by the staff tent. Dennis. He didn't wave, but he didn't turn away either. We drove in silence until the city skyline replaced the trees. That night, I lay awake in Mason's guest room, not out of fear, out of release. I didn't open my phone, didn't need to see what the internet had done with the footage, the screenshots, the scandal. I knew Cassidy had gone dark. Clarissa too. I knew the hashtags were spiraling, but I also knew this part wasn't mine to manage anymore. The next morning, I found an envelope outside my door. No return address. Inside was a photo, faded but familiar. 2 girls, one in a glittery tiara and store-bought gown, the other in a dragon costume made of duct tape and a pillowcase. My head had tilted out of frame, half blurred, but my smile was full. Tucked behind it was a note: "You were never invisible to me. Dad." I didn't cry. I made coffee. Later that day, I hung the photo by the door of my new place. Small, sun-warmed, flawed. Mine. The walls were slightly uneven, paint peeling in one corner. The floorboards creaked near the kitchen. But the light that streamed through the cheap linen curtains in the morning was perfect. It danced over the arm of the couch and caught the edge of the photo frame like blessing. I stepped back a few feet, holding a nail between my fingers, adjusting the angle until it felt right. Then I stood there, still in pajamas, mug warm in my hand, and just looked. Not at the flaws, at the ownership. This was my place. I opened my laptop, not to scroll, but to write, to apply to a nonprofit I'd long admired. One that helped women re-enter the workforce after being made to feel like background noise. I stepped outside onto the porch. The sky was bruised with morning light. In my palm, I held the F necklace I'd almost given away once. I didn't need it to be seen anymore. But I wore it anyway. When Mason called from inside, "You okay out there?" I didn't rush my answer. I smiled into the quiet. "I'm not okay," I called back. "I'm something better." I looked past the porch steps, past the sidewalk, past everything they said I'd never be. And to no one in particular, I whispered, "I choose me." I walked away from that estate without anyone's applause, and I didn't need it. In my hands wasn't an apology, but freedom, the kind you earn when you stop waiting for permission to exist. I've learned this. The moment you stop bending to please those who belittle you is the moment you begin living in your true worth. Dignity doesn't come from being accepted. It comes from choosing yourself, even if you have to walk alone. What about you? Have you ever kept quiet to keep the peace, even when it broke something inside you? Share your story with me. I read every word because I know exactly how that silence feels. And if you're somewhere in the middle of that quiet fight to be seen, to be heard, to be you, know this: you are not alone, and you are not invisible.